Hi, Johanna. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're here to talk because you're the managing director of a think tank, 21st Europe. But I get the impression that what you're doing is a bit different from what people usually expect from a think tank. Can you explain what it is that you're trying to do at 21st Europe?
Yeah, hi, Dominic. Thanks so much. It's exciting to be here. And I think that's a great question. And we call ourselves a think tank maybe because there isn't really another name for what it is that we're trying to do. But in some ways, we are a traditional think tank in that we're using research, activating different partners across civil society to try and inform public discourse. But we're not so traditional in the sense that design is our main vehicle for doing so, to really take complicated issues and simplifying them into something super tangible, concrete, and visible and visual to make sure that they're accessible, engaging, and much more action-oriented than a traditional think tank might be focused on.
And why do you think that kind of action-oriented think tank is so necessary right now?
That's a great question. I think there's a big one. It's not only about action. I think the key piece here is about optimism. There's a lot already, both when it comes to existing research and reports around what we could do. And I think what we've been missing is a discussion or a debate around what it is that we should do in terms of the thinking about the future of Europe specifically.
I first came across your work when you revealed your Starline project, which is this extraordinarily ambitious blueprint for a new European high-speed rail network. Could you tell us a bit about that project and what exactly it is you're proposing?
Yeah, Starline is a vision for a completely connected high-speed rail network across most of the major cities within Europe. So the easy answer is to say, what if taking a high-speed rail train was the same sort of experience and ease as taking a metro in your local sort of urban capital city. So that's the thinking behind it, and it builds off existing policy and legislation called the TNT, but adds more layers of design when it comes to thinking about elements like user experience, general experience of making it really desirable and easy to choose a train over planes or cars, for example.
And what's the response been like to Starline? Do you think there's actually any chance it could happen?
Oh, I mean, the reactions to the project so far, there's been a lot of excitement and, people imagining how it might change their commutes or their vacations. But I think there's also been a lot of really interesting feedback, especially when it comes to the map element of Starline. And we've kind of gotten a taste with our first blueprint in terms of what people see as Europe and what Europe means to them and how different that is depending on your own personal backstory. So in that sense, there's been a lot of debate and engagement, particularly around the map. But
what was wrong with the map? What was controversial about it?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think the map was by design provocative. So some of the routes, I think we've gotten a lot of emails from specific engineers of how would you build a route through this particular mountain range. And there are a couple of Easter eggs in the map like that are non-intuitive routes to kind of place the viewer in the future and say, this is not a plan for tomorrow. This is an ambition that we can choose to buy into for 20, 30, 50 years from now. And who knows what either the technical world will look like in terms of what's feasible, what will make sense in terms of city location. There's all sorts of what ifs. And the map was kind of designed with that in mind. And that's what's really awoken a lot of debate. And it's been crazy to see that with our first blueprint that people care about, some random new think tank coming out with something. But it's so exciting to see how passionately people are engaging with it.
I noticed also with the visuals you released that the trains are European blue with stars on the front. It's all pretty deliberately referencing the EU. Has the project had any kind of formal or informal backing from European institutions?
We haven't had any sort of either formal or informal up to the creation of the blueprint. And that's also by design, that these blueprints are independent sort of explorations that come out into the world and live their own life. But on the flip side, we've had quite a bit of interest and engagement, both informally and formally, from EU institutions in terms of how to make this real, what are considerations for various, particular technical elements of particularly from an experience design perspective. And so it's been that side, but it's also been, from a lot of private sector actors are specifically involved when it comes to high-speed rail networks. So it's been great to see that there's an interest in how do we make this happen? How do we improve the existing efforts towards this direction?
Your most recent blueprint is something very different, children's playgrounds. Why did you decide to focus on playgrounds? Like what's lacking in Europe's approach to them at the moment, and why do you see them as so important?
Oh, I love that question. Kova, the other partner in 21st Europe, and I are both parents. So we also have a personal sort of affinity to this, spending a lot of time thinking about playgrounds and being on playgrounds. But something that we really notice when it comes to, from a more topical perspective or a timely perspective, is there's so much focus right now in Europe around investing, particularly in defense, and thinking about war as a critical investment, readjusting a lot of European budgets to align with that discourse. And we felt like there was something missing in terms of, if we're investing in defense, what is it that we're defending? Are we still investing in what is worth defending across Europe? And so in that sense, playgrounds kind of became this symbol as, on its surface level, a kind of silly thing to invest in a time of war, and yet it represents so much of what is worth protecting here in Europe in terms of quality of life and our families. And so in that sense, we really liked the timing of it and the tension that was kind of inherent to opening that discussion as well.
I know there are lots of discussions about like how far can we stretch the boundaries of what we can count as defense spending, and some people saying, oh, we should spend defense spending on like gyms and swimming pools. Do you think we should even we could argue that by making our playgrounds good, we're making society stronger, and therefore that is defense spending?
Yeah, maybe
ridiculous?
that's one approach to it. I mean, I definitely think there's a value in terms of investing, thinking about playgrounds as civic infrastructure and what it means to be a community, to be European, to be part of something outside of your work or your family life. That there's a unity that can be fostered there that is quite important when you're facing a lot of external threats or crises.
Are there parts of Europe that are really good at building playgrounds already and investing in them? Like, where do you look to for inspiration?
I mean, I'm quite biased, based in Copenhagen, Denmark, where I think we have some of the best playgrounds in the world. But one of the interesting things about the playground space here is that the playgrounds are built, or designed rather, with this idea to promote both creativity and exploration, but also social skills. And thinking about our children as future citizens, creativity is one of those skills that will be extremely important in the future work market or future labor market. But not just that, but thinking about playgrounds also as an opportunity to develop and invest in critical climate infrastructure. A lot of the playgrounds here in Copenhagen also function as water repositories for floods, are also quite green or have a lot of shaded areas when it comes to heat waves. So thinking about them as sort of multi-purpose spaces, I think is a great step forward when it comes to designing public spaces.
That does sound really amazing. The reason why I asked that question is because we've actually got a mini series coming up called Who Does It Best, in which we're going to be looking at 3 policy areas: childcare, drug policy, and housing policy. So not playgrounds at the moment, but so we're in this process at the moment where we're really looking across the continent to find good examples of policy. And I guess I'm wondering how much your blueprints in general, how much of them come from real world examples that already exist, and how much of it is about like imagining something new?
Yeah, it's a fantastic challenge in terms of the balancing act of anchoring something in the practicalities and realities of today, and then stretching the imagination further out into the future and bringing people on that journey. And I would say these past 2 blueprints, Starline and Continent of Play, and most of the blueprints on our roadmap for the next 2 years are anchored in very real things happening today. Whether it's existing projects, existing examples of success, existing policies. And there's something about this connection to today that I think will be a key ingredient to the success of these blueprints moving forward, both in terms of engagement from people, but also in terms of implementation. So it's very much, a little bit of both in terms of things that are existing today, but also how do we screw up or turn up the dial up? There we go. How do we dial up the level of ambition in terms of what is already in motion today?
Well, I think the plans you've published so far both sound wonderful, but aren't they just things that would be incredibly expensive? Like,
Ooh, the golden
how do we
question.
deal with that? Yeah.
This is actually one of my favorite questions because I think it's a question that doesn't give us as humans, as Europeans, enough credit in terms of what we've already accomplished. So when we think about, just thinking about major infrastructure projects, past initiatives like the English Channel Tunnel, or between Sweden and Denmark, there's the Öresund Bridge. At the time, they were considered either technically or economically infeasible by a lot of people and received enormous amounts of criticism. Even the European project itself, in terms of having a shared currency, open borders, all of these things were considered pipe dreams, and they're things that we take for granted today as, yeah, of course we could achieve that. It's here, we're used to it, we live with it. And so I think these things that people think are impossible for whatever reason, whether it's too expensive, unrealistic, technically not possible, I think that doesn't give us enough credit in terms of what we can achieve when we decide that it's a priority.
Well, in that case, what else have you got coming up? What are you working on next? What do you think Europe should be keeping an eye out for?
Ooh, everything is teased online on our website, but the next one that we're working on for release later this fall is called Made in Europe. So looking at from a economic perspective in terms of how to position Europe as much more economically competitive on the global stage, what that looks like from a practical perspective when it comes to products and services, but also what it looks like from a branding and a positioning perspective. So we're super excited about that one.
That does sound really cool. And it's amazing the diversity of the projects you're working on. It must be quite something for your whole team to get your head around all these different dossiers. Do you ever find it difficult to switch?
No, I actually think there's something quite interesting to move from these different topics and see sort of the interconnections between each of the themes, because we're working with 4 different themes: connected infrastructure and mobility, green infrastructure, social well-being, and then economic competitiveness. And I think, even looking at things like social well-being with playgrounds, you see how much connection there is to things like economic competitiveness in terms of attracting global talent to Europe because people want to come here for the quality of life. So I think in that sense, it keeps us in this grander vision of what the future of Europe could be without making us totally schizophrenic and jumping from topic to topic.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I can't wait to see what you've got coming next. And let's hope some of them become a reality. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, let's make it happen, Dominic.
Let's.